Good evening. My name is Dr. Tricia Stubblefield. I'm a professor of English and coordinator of the English program here at Cady College. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to tonight's We Who Wow event. From the very beginning, leadership and social responsibility have been hallmarks of a Cady education. From the college's inception, Virginia Alice Cady envisioned a school where women gain the necessary preparation to do the great work of enlightening and saving the world. Tonight's We Who Wow panel discussion is hosted through a collaborative effort of the First Year Writing Seminar and the Serenbits Institute for Women's Leadership, Social Responsibility, and Global Awareness. The First Year Writing Seminar is a foundational course for Cady students for both writing and content. In this course, students are introduced to women's leadership, social responsibility, and global awareness through the practice of thoughtful reading, analysis, and writing within a liberal arts context. This signature Cady writing course allows students to absorb our threads and become strong writers, as well as socially and globally aware leaders within their first semester at Cady. The leadership program is advised by the Cady Leadership Team, a group of Cady administrators, faculty, staff, and students who help shape leadership development opportunities for Cady students. Members of the Leadership Team Program Subcommittee were responsible for selecting tonight's esteemed panelists. Tonight's We Who Wow event is made possible through the Shirley and Bert Zeiler Speaker Series Endowment for Women's Leadership and Social Responsibility. Established in 2012 by their sons, James D. Zeiler and Dr. Stephen B. Zeiler, the earnings are used to host lecturers for the Cady College campus. Over the next 60 minutes, you will hear from our panelists as they share their stories about making change happen. They have championed a range of causes, including women's rights, social justice, equity, equality, and respect for all. We will begin with each panelist making introductory remarks in which they share their change initiatives. So we will hear briefly from each panelist, and then you, the audience members, will have the opportunity to ask questions. For those in the audience required to attend this event for class, event attendance will be tracked using a post-event survey shared in the chat box following the panel. So students, be sure to stick around for that survey link once the event is concluded. Audience members, as you listen, you will want to think of the questions you would like to ask and then type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. We will also use the chat feature to engage with the audience. We'll enter the speaker bios and pose questions to the audience members there. Watch the chat box for this information, and I encourage all audience members to participate in this back channel discussion. So our first panelist is Phyllis Utley, a catalyst for change in school, community, tribal, and faith-based venues. Phyllis has been an Indigenous literary word artist since childhood. You can read Phyllis Utley's full bio using the link in the chat box. Phyllis, thank you for joining us tonight for the We Who Wow panel. Please share with the audience about your background and a little about the work that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's such an honor and a privilege to be here. Anakusa Kofudachiki is my indigenous name. The Iswa people of the River Otter Clan. First literary artist, indigenous literary artist in Buncombe County of North Carolina this year. Was amazing to share with others in many different spaces. And I'm going to roll right into a piece that I actually started in the 3rd grade. So someone actually hit me up on Facebook and reminded me of something that they thought was so amazing that I had written in the 3rd grade that I didn't remember, and they shared it with me. And then it came back, and from there, there is a piece in Asheville, North Carolina that's entitled Hope Springs Forth Brightly that is based on some of my work. So I will start very quickly. Be free, live free. Release the systemic chains on we. You and me. It's about us. We are bound in a sacred circle. What happens to you happens to me. happens to we. How can I sink in the murky waters of despair when I sink into the pit of hopelessness? But at last, I touch the flat rock of faith, and I spring forth to the light that I am, that we are, that I am, you are, we are together. Thank you.
I got too excited there for a minute. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Our next We Who Well panelist is Ashley E. Nichols. Ashley is an associate professor in the School of Peace and Conflict Studies at Kent State University. Please see Ashley's full bio in the link in the chat box. Ashley, thank you for joining us tonight for the We Who Well panel. Please share a little about your background and your important work with our audience.
Got to remember to unmute as well. So thank you. And following up after someone who is a literary artist is difficult because I'm a social scientist by practice. And so in so many ways, my work feels very kind of like, this is what I do. But I'm really excited to be here and honored to share space with all of you. So I think where I want to start, and I've gone back and forth. I have like 6 different pages of notes on how to talk about where I came from and how I showed up to this space. And the first thing I want to mention, because I know there's so many first-year students here, is that I am currently an associate professor at a university. I have served in positions, as a tenured faculty in political science, as a tenured faculty now in the School of Peace and Conflict Studies. But my undergraduate degree, I actually initially started in biochemistry and wiggled my way into psychology, and then wound up in gender studies, and then took some courses in social work. And at the core of all of those was a deep, deep interest in how I fit into the world and trying to make sense of my role in fostering positive change. And through that process, did a lot of self-reflection. I'll acknowledge that I'm a white woman and had to do a lot of work around thinking about my positionality and what that meant to create change. So I think the reason I was invited here today is because one of the projects that I work on is called the Growing Democracy Project. And it's really core to who I am. I'm really interested in how do we foster deep, meaningful democratic engagement to bolster not just any type of democracy, but a just and equitable democracy. So at the core of the work that we do, it's all collaborative. I'm just one member of a team of people, but we're interested in demystifying politics and policy and governance and amplifying marginalized and minoritized experiences and perspectives and bringing those central into our conversations around what makes democracy democracy. And our goal is really to foster just democracy and equitable civic engagement. And we do this through a ton of different types of practices. We have a podcast, a lot of different university-based programs, and different forms of kind of reading circles and roundtable discussions on really difficult topics. And so, I could talk to you about my academic credentials, but you can see those. But I think one of the places that has been most profound and meaningful to me is the work that we've done collectively with the Growing Democracy Project, and excited to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Thank you, Ashley. Our next panelist, Angela Whitlock, is a third-year law student at Cumberland School of Law, Samford University in Birmingham, Alabama. She is the founder and president of Outlaw, an identity-based student organization that aims to provide a safe space and facilitate an environment to encourage the studies of legal issues affecting the LGBTQ+ community. Please see Angela's full bio at the link in the chat box. Angela, thank you for joining us tonight as a We Who Wow panelist. Please tell our audience about your background and your work.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here and to be among such an inspiring group of women on this panel. Oh, saw a hand go up. um, but thank you so much for inviting me. And as you were saying, I am in my final year of law school here in Birmingham, and I'm the founder and president of Outlaw. I got a little excited when Ashley was talking about social work because I am also a licensed clinical social worker. Also, my background before that was I was in the military for 11 years. So this would be my third profession. Super excited about the law. The main issue with Outlaw right now is that we are not a formally recognized group at the school. And I want to give just a little bit of background information as to that whole process and how that began, because I think that's the main reason why I'm here, to kind of talk about Outlaw and that whole journey. It started in August of 2021. Like a lot of campuses, there is always like a student organization fair day, and they try to recruit students to join their group. As a first year law student, I attended that fair day, and I noticed that there was no group with queer representation. And so a friend and I decided we were going to start that group. The law school has been in existence for over 175 years. And during that entire time, no one has ever attempted to, establish, create a student-led LGBTQ group. So this was a first, but we thought we'd go ahead and try it out. And we submitted all of our paperwork with the law school. And by November of 2021, the law school approved our organization. However, they said that they wanted us to go through the undergraduate approval process through Samford. No other student organization had to go through a separate process like we had to, but we did in good faith. And in February of 2022, we submitted our application with the undergraduate process. It took about 8 months. I'm kind of fast forwarding a lot of things that happened in between there. But 8 months later, we were officially denied by the president of the school for full recognition for our group. So that was in October of 2022. And after that, we responded with a online petition. We gathered over 1,000 signatures on the petition of folks who said, let these folks have their group, be fully recognized. And then in February of 2023, we also gathered a petition of the approved student organizations at the law school who supported our efforts. So the Black Law Student Association, the Hispanic Law Student Association, there were, I think, about 8 organizations that signed a petition to the president saying, we have no problem with Outlaw being an organization at our school and fully recognized. We presented that document to the president in his office, and also sent an email saying that we would like a meeting with him to talk more about LGBTQ issues on campus. We have not received a response from the president or any of the administration since March of 2023. And recently I have been told that he is not willing to meet with any Outlaw representatives and faculty members on any LGBTQ issues. So with that being said, some people may say, well, Angela, they are a religious private university. And I'd agree. They are definitely, Samford is a religious private university. However, they are also a federally funded university. And a lot of folks don't know that there's a difference when it comes to the law of what that means, that you're just not a federal, or you're just not a private religious university, but you're also receiving federal funds, because not all private religious universities receive federal funds. What does that mean? That means those that receive federal funds are supposed to follow federal regulations. Specifically, the ones we're talking about is Title IX. And one thing that I just want to kind of shine a light on is there are a lot of these private religious universities who get to kind of go around Title IX. Title IX, I'm sorry, is it is the regulation that basically says you cannot discriminate on someone on the basis of sex. And the Biden administration has extended the definition of sex to sexual orientation as well as gender identity and expression. So typically, since they receive federal funding, they would have to comply with Title IX. However, they can fill out what they call a religious exemption and get away with discriminating against folks on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and that's how they are legally discriminating against us. So I am just shedding a light, and that my main purpose tonight is to shed a light on what that is and how harmful it is to use that religious exemption to legally discriminate against people based on their identities. And yeah, sorry, I could talk all day.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. Our next We Who Wow panelist is Amy McNichols-Kroll, Administrator of Reentry, Allegheny County Jail. Please see Amy's full bio at the link in the chat box. Amy, we are pleased to welcome you to the We Who Wow panel. Please tell our audience about your work and background. And I think you're still muted, Amy.
Yeah, of course.
I jinxed
No.
everyone. I apologize.
First, I'd like to say thank you all for inviting me. Like Ashley, I had to find my career was different than most women. Again, not dating myself, but I started my career back in 1982, when women were, just making huge entries into male-dominated fields. So I started out, would you believe, with a background in criminal justice administration with my master's and a bachelor's in social work, only to be told that I had to be a matron and not a correctional officer, because back then, women did not hold the title of correctional officers. With a little help of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and affirmative action, we finally won the right to be correctional officers. So I was one of two female to become a correctional officer in an all-male institution, which was very unique and where I encountered lots of discrimination from both sides. But I was still trying to figure myself out, as Ashley said. And so I had the academics, and now I was trying to make it in the workaday world. Well, from there, we did go through a riot. So then that, I decided, okay, I need to rethink this world. And I ended up working with, after working with all males in a maximum security, medium security prison, I moved on to work with juveniles. From there, I became an emergency psychiatric clinician to work with the Boston police, in which we talked people off of jumping off of bridges or in any kind of psychiatric crisis. From there, I actually ended up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I had spent 2 years of my high school years. And the exciting thing was I found a position working in reentry. So the pendulum in corrections had started to swing. We had gone from lock them up and throw away the key to now we can't keep on building prison upon prison and paying for it. It was costing more than our educational budgets. So I was a pioneer in my field to start reentry, but the exciting part of it was to go into our county jails. We had 3,000 inmates, but it was more important that I knew 90% of those people were coming home to our community. And instead of being on the fringe edges of our community, it was about time that we embrace these people who made a mistake and start to help them empower their lives. So one of the things I wanted to tell all of you out there, you know, as you start on your journey of your careers, you may bump around a little bit before you find what really makes you happy, and this is probably the best job I've ever had in my life, because you can see people change their lives. But the most important thing is we changed the way we structured our jail. We looked at it as more of not a lock them up and throw away the key, but we looked at it as an institution of helping people recover their lives. Just as we do for individuals that have drug and alcohol issues, how can we help you recover your life? You had a life before you came in here. How do we help you do that? And with that, we brought in education. We brought in parenting programs. We brought in relationship programs. But most importantly, we brought in vocational programs. You know, unfortunately, our public schools really weren't doing the job of helping people figure out, what do I want to be when I grow up? You know, that magical question they all want us to decide at 18. This was something that we were helping individuals start from the beginning. Do you like to work with your head or with your hands? And from there, we have helped individuals get into machining programs and bricklaying programs. And in our world right now, people really aren't looking at criminal backgrounds. People need employees and tradesmen so bad, they're very forgiving. So all of a sudden, I had guys stopping me at the mall and at the grocery store saying, Miss Kroll, I am working for the Carpenters Union. I am now making, you know, $32 an hour. I don't need to live on the streets. I don't need to do, you know, what I used to do before. And I always, you know, used to say, hey, that, you know, that's in your past. Tell me how you're doing now. Did you get married? You know, I mean, your past is your past. But the most exciting thing is that in our jail, we have dropped our population from 3,000. We are now down to 1,600, and hopefully even getting better. But so the biggest thing that I want to impart on everybody today is that, you know, maybe you bump around a little bit, but what your heart's been telling you, or where you really feel your passion, it's out there. You may just take a little time to find it, but it's exciting to know that I'm a part of a change in this world.
Thank you, Amy. I would now like to give members of the audience an opportunity to ask our panelists questions. You may direct your question to any one member of the panel, or you can just ask something that anyone can respond to. So please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. So the first question comes from students in the first year writing seminar, and this one can be answered by any one of our panelists. So what challenges or setbacks have you experienced in your work, and how did you confront them?
I can go on this one. I think I kind of talked about a little bit of the setbacks that we've had. So starting with so some setbacks. It was first, starting something from the ground up is very hard in itself, but doing it in law school is even harder because there's so many things that you're supposed to do and you're trying to get everything ready and prepared. It's a whole different world. So juggling that has been something very difficult for me, being the founder, being the president. I've never started any type of organization like that in my life. So I think it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of self-care and recognizing, hey, I can't do everything on my own. I rely heavily on the board, of the board members that are of Outlaw. And, delegating was very, very helpful. In the military, I learned a lot about delegating, so that came through. But yeah, just kind of, because we got a lot of no's. We got a lot of, not only did the president, give us that letter and deny our organization, but we were essentially denied from the beginning, from the law school. It should have been they approved us to begin with, and then that was it. So having to jump through that extra hoop to go through the undergrad process, that was difficult. Going to the student involvement center and them telling us, oh, we can't do the next step of the process because we're waiting on somebody else. And then we find out that really wasn't happening. We set up a meeting with the president. And like I said, it took 8 months for him to get back with us. And even, after that time, that petition, we had another petition. I think I told you all about the other student organizations that signed a petition that were saying that they approve of our organization. And during that process, there was another interference with the administration that kept people from signing that petition. And so we had to work around that. And, how can we let folks know that, hey, you're not going to get in trouble. Your organization won't get in trouble if you sign this petition. A lot of pushback from getting social media, getting news sources involved. But my position is I tried to go the route that they told me to go. I jumped through the legal hoops, or whatever the process. I did the formal process. And after being denied and after being ignored, I don't see the issue in just saying what's really happening and letting the media know what's going on. Nothing's going to change if we keep it all inside. At least that's what I've learned from history. So that's what I do.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I was thinking, so part of my uh, work and life, similar to actually Amy, is I have 4 years because I have a personal uh, impact. Personally, I have been impacted by the criminal justice system and have also been incarcerated and needed support in getting help getting out. And I have been a part of bailing out over 800 people who were just waiting on court dates. They hadn't been convicted of anything. They're just sitting there waiting for a court date, which could happen 2 years from now. And then, of course, they lose their job, lose their house, their home, everything. So being able to, first of all, be a part of an organization and other people in community that helped fund. I mean, we received like $72 million to pay bail for people. Now, I will say that it was very painful for me, though, because when I could literally type an email to send to somebody to get a check for $20,000 to pay somebody's bail to get them out of jail and go get the money and think, man, I wish I could be using this for something else. Okay. I wish I could be using this to help somebody get a down payment on a house. I wish, other things. So I also had to do my own self evaluation and say, okay, this is what this is right now. This is what this system is right now. In order to get somebody out, it will require this. Okay. So I can literally get anywhere from, well, I mean, I had someone that's locked up for $500, but you don't have the money, you can't get out. You got the money, you can get out. Okay. So dealing with my own personal issues related to internally and that practice of self-care, so important. This is what I can do. Okay. I can't fix all of it at once. We're also working on that part of it to make changes in the system itself. But in the meantime, right, I got to save some fish and their families, right, while we're working on the pond to get why the fish are dying, why this is happening, and also allow the people to have voice. I mean, we wrote poetry while they were incarcerated. Okay, like because it will helps me for my own healing. I got issues in my tissues. I get distressed. So I use the art to help me get grounded and centered in the midst of the murky waters of the hopelessness, sometimes how it feels like if we ever going to get through this. And then I have to remember the ancestors and what they went through and the things that we are today we are receiving the benefits of what other people did in times past. So I got the baton now. This is what I'm doing, and despite whatever else is going on, I'm just like a dung beetle, a scarab moving the poop around. Okay, I got to move it around to fertilize the ground so that new life can come about as a result.
I think one of the biggest challenges that I had was dealing with the correctional officers. They didn't want the change. They still want to lock them up and throw away the key. So it took a lot of, they used to call our machining program the shank shop, and there was a nickname for every program we had. But I think that in every challenge, it's patience, it is kindness. I still believe, my mother used to say, kill them with kindness. So even though I knew they couldn't stand me, I still smiled and said good morning as I was turning on the lights to the machining program. So sometimes it's perseverance, and sometimes for yourself, it's mindfulness and meditation to stay on your course, even though, it could be a little rough seas sometimes, but you'll see through it. You will get through it.
My goodness, I had the benefit of now hearing from all of you this time. And I have like so many responses. So to Angela's point, the Growing Democracy Project was proposed to be a center supported by the institution, and with the pending passage of state legislation that was attacking kind of very specific types of educational spaces, especially diversity, equity, and inclusion, anything that was talking about social justice. And we were talking about kind of radically social just democracy building, right? That was like the scariest thing possible. So we also got shut down, right? And so then it was like this mass, like, how do we pivot? What do we do? We don't have funding going forward. We already had used our pilot funding. Where do we go? What do we do? And so right now we're just like skin of our teeth. Outside of my traditional job, this is something I am deeply passionate about. So I'm just doing it, right? Keep doing it. But to Amy, you also mentioned kill them with kindness. It reminded me of something that I've done many a time, which is anytime I've been faced with someone who didn't think I had the capacity to do something, which happened regularly, right? I was in my professional spaces, in academia and political science and public policy. It is still male dominated. So every time I was confronted with some sort of challenge, I would like apply to the most ridiculous thing out there. And we're like, there was, 3 months prior, I wouldn't have even crossed my path. I wouldn't have thought about it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to prove them wrong. And you know where it got me? I got a fellowship to Harvard for a year because I just kind of was like, I was so angry at someone undermining what they thought I was capable of that I seriously just put out an application, was like, all right, let me prove them wrong. And honestly, at the end of and I got it. And that I was like, what? I never even had thought of applying previous to that. So anyways, so all of you have made comments that really resonated with me and in my own journey as I've kind of navigated obstacles that are both personal, right? Personal attacks, but also institutional attacks, trying to do really hard justice-oriented work.
Thank you. From our Q&A, we have an anonymous user who poses this question for Amy Kroll. My sister has previously worked as a juvenile detention officer and a juvenile diversion officer, so I've been somewhat exposed to the world of criminal justice and to those who have faced convictions trying to recover. I've seen her passion, and I know how emotionally involved she got, yet how taxing it was. I have to ask, have there ever been times where you've emotionally struggled, even though this is your passion? And how did you keep pushing through?
That's every day in my life. We work very hard for these individuals, and then when you find out that they've come back, it is a struggle, because you kind of work hard with them, work hard with their families, because we also have a family connection program, so that we're one of the few jails in the whole United States that actually does contact visits. Most jails do window visits, but how can a 3-year-old not touch his father? I watched too many times of 3-year-olds bang on the glass because they can't touch their father. So it only took 2 years of going to meetings and fighting the administration that we actually have contact visits. But where it seems that every time when I think enough is enough, I can't do this work anymore, I'll run into somebody in our market or in our malls that has totally changed his life. I have run into people that have said to their kids, to their little kids, see this lady, she changed my life. And it's always at that time. So when you feel like too much, that's the point that you have to look back and say, yeah, like that fish or that starfish that they're throwing in the ocean, maybe I couldn't save this one, but I saved that one. It isn't that I'm saving anybody, it's just that I'm giving them the pathway to see that you can recover you can recover your lives. And sometimes you just need that leg up. You just need somebody giving you encouragement. And on those days, that's where my peers really help me, where I'll go into their office and say, who's back? And I'll explain. And that's when they're like, but Aim, you have another chance to maybe make a difference. So each time you try to look for that, that rainbow, that is peeking through, or maybe we look at what's going to turn the key in the individual, that something says, yeah, I am somebody and I am worthy of recovering my life. So rely on your peers a lot. They'll help.
Great, thank you. Our next question was also submitted by students in our first year writing seminar and is addressed to Dr. Ashley Nichols. All of our first year students are reading What the Eyes Don't See by Mona Hanna-Attisha, and you have addressed this topic in your work. The question for Ashley is, what was the most surprising thing you learned through writing Power, Participation, and Protest in Flint, Michigan?
Oh, that is a really great question. So in the book, I'm really interested in really challenging the assumption that the policy that ended up kind of creating the water crisis was just politics as usual and wasn't a threat to democracy. And so I went in both with an intention to make sense of this policy and to really hear people's voices. And I'll say, one of the things I talk about in a lot of different spaces is that and maybe this will be the example, like what was most surprising. I was trained as a social scientist. So I was trained how to do research and to go into communities and to do ethnography and to do interviews and to think about how to do it ethically. I think one of the most surprising things, and the people that I was doing this interview with, I think would totally laugh at it as well. The benefit of this is I'm still in communication with them and still have a relationship, is that when I first went in, it wasn't me interviewing them, they were interviewing me. Like, who are you, right? Like, what, you know, what are you planning on doing with this information? And you know, my traditional training was to be objective, right? And I have to stay distant. And then when I let my guard down and I was authentic and I told them how I came to be curious, and what the crisis in Flint meant to me as somebody who was from Michigan, with family in Flint, what that meant to me, there was a lot more openness. And so, you know, there are all sorts of pieces that, I have story after story after story. This is years of relationships that I've sustained. And the book's just one little piece of it. But I think that that's probably the most surprising, with how much it changed how I approached my work. How the community organizers changed me, and my very technical, you know, high ranking training, and said, no, we want to know who you are. Give us this information, and how do we access it? There's all sorts of other wild stories, and I'm happy to answer those as well, but that's probably the most salient in this moment.
Thank you. So our next question is from our viewing room in 158 and could be answered by any panelist. So you all seem like very effective leaders. What is something you have learned about leadership that has surprised you?
That my degree is simply 3 letters after my name. And that does not make me an expert in all things. And I have a lot to learn from a lot of other people. And the more I know, the more I realize I don't know.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's real. And that resonates with me as well. And I think oftentimes people think of all the quote successes, that it seems like, but they don't know what it took to get through to the thing, the challenges along the way. No matter who it is, no matter who the leader is, in whatever time period in history, everybody had all these different things they had to get through, and their own fears as well. You're thinking, you have to get to the fear is a door. But I got to get through that door to get on the other side. And I might be afraid to do it. And so many other people have been afraid too and persevered. So that's a big lesson for me in the midst of my fears, to keep pressing through and open the door even when I don't even feel like it.
I agree with Ashley. I mean, the more I know, the less I know. But what I've also learned is that my staff and the people that I surround myself with, they're the most important people. And they matter so much because their opinion matters very much. And so in any major decision as a leader, I try to include as most people as I can, because they're the boots on the ground. They know what's going on in our communities. They know what matters, so that we make the best decision on which way we're moving. So I think that all my staff and the clients are so important. Their thought process and their ideas matter also.
I definitely agree, Amy. Along that subject, I was thinking the same, because a leader, and what a lot of the students will realize is, some of us may be what they call natural born leaders. So we have some innate skill to lead, but it is the people that are around you that really enhance that and bring that about, and keep you being that leader that you're called to be. When you feel like giving up sometimes, They remind you of who you are. I think about some of the great leaders of our time. Martin Luther King Jr., he always had a crew behind him. He always had, we always think about him, but we never really noticed too much about the folks that helped him with the movement. And he would not be, who remembered the way he is today if it were not for their support. I think about my family. I think they might be tuned in today. I don't know. My mother, my brother, my sister-in-law always have been very supportive of me, reminded me when, times get difficult of who I am when I can't even see it in myself. I've got my staff advisor. When you have faculty behind you, that is huge. There are a lot of legal entities that have been supporting me, like REAP, professors, and yeah. Oh, and
Yeah,
a big
heard
one
of it.
is a big one is also groups that have come before me, and I kind of feed off of their energy. And like Phyllis was talking about, you have that baton. And so sometimes when it comes to change, it's not always instant. There was a leader in 2000, whatever, and then 2010, somebody else took the baton, and I'm just the one for this period right now. And I learned a lot from Britt Blaylock, who was the leader back in 10 years ago, doing the same thing basically that I'm doing. And so she pushed a little bit, I'm pushing, and we will just continue. There'll be another leader that will rise up and continue. So have faith in that.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Our next question is from our first year writing seminar, and it's addressed to Amy. So if there was one thing you could make all Americans understand about your movement, what would it be?
I think the most important that these are human beings, that they're people. And these individuals, some because of the way where they live or their background or their parents, their whole environment has caused them to make some poor decisions. No one grows up saying, hey, I'm gonna become a criminal. It's either environment or the family, but everybody, all of us make mistakes. Some are bigger than others. Some, as some individuals that currently work for me said, Amy, I could have been there. I could be in here if I didn't have one strong person helping me. So I think the whole world needs to look. We have over close to 3 million people behind bars. And I would say a small part of that cannot be rehabilitated. I have learned there are some people that, but a very, very small part, should not be in society. But there's a far more greater part that are human beings that made a bad decision. And with the help and support, will never come back again and will never make that decision again. And if anybody says those the people in prison aren't sad or upset or regret the decisions they made, then they're foolish. Because I have talked through my 40 years of working in this system, thousands and thousands of men and women who said, God, I only wish I wouldn't have made that decision that night. So these are people. We're all people trying to make it through this crazy world. And it's sometimes just giving everybody a chance.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from our first year writing seminar and is addressed to Angela. So in what ways have programs like Outlaw helped to provide fair treatment and safe spaces for LGBTQ plus individuals?
Yes, safe spaces. So one thing that Outlaw provides is, it is a support network. So trying to think of how to start, because we do so many things. We haven't recently, but in the past, we definitely have social events that we participate in. We participate with the community as far as clinics. So there is a local organization who provides legal services related to name changes. So that services the transgender population typically. And so we volunteer to help our local community by signing up with these name change clinics and learn about that legal process and sharing that with the community. Also helping the LGBTQ population with their wills, completing wills, advanced healthcare directives, power of attorneys. We participate in things not so legal, but just things that help the community as far as participating in a trunk or treat event, now that it's close to Halloween. I'm remembering that from last year. And that those funds from that event went to a shelter, domestic shelter in the community. Basically, when we meet up, we have our meetings at least once a semester. Those meetings provide a safe space, whether it's held in the library or it's held off campus. It's a safe space for us to talk about anything from what's going on legally that's affecting our community to, hey, did you watch Queer Eye? So anything that we can just talk about that we can all kind of relate to. And yeah.
Great, thank you. So unfortunately, I hate to say this, but we are running out of time. So as we wrap up our We Who Wow panel, this is a question that anyone on the panel can answer. What words of advice do you have for our audience that might help them make a major difference in the world around them?
Such a loaded question, Trisha.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Phyllis. You got it.
No. It's just that nothing's little. Nothing's little. Many times people think that, I can't, they're thinking about this grandiose thing, but the truth of the matter is, like, big doors swing on little hinges. So you never know the power of what thing that may appear to be small, the impact or the ripple effect that it can have. And so whatever is tugging at your heart, trust yourself to move in that direction. Know that what's in you is that great. You're made out of stardust. The whole universe is inside of you. Trust it, believe and know that how it leads, it has its own way. And that will lead you. And you never know. Like me writing a poem in the 3rd grade. No, I have no idea that, somebody, years later would say that this was still resonating in their heart after all these years. So never know. You just trust what's coming up for you. Right. What's coming up for me? Trust what's coming up for you and let it lead you.
And also to believe in your dreams. So many people give up on your dreams. And if you want to make a difference in this world and you believe you have a great idea, don't give up on it. Don't take no, you'll get 100 no's. I got 1,000 no's. The warden asked me if I'd lost my mind a couple of times when I was now I'm trying to get in a barista program in the jail. I figured the officers could pay $1 for a cup of coffee, but I could train inmates to be baristas so they would have a job immediately once they get out. But it would also benefit the officers. It would lift the morale in the institution, but don't give up on your dreams. Do not give up on your dreams of making a difference in this world.
So I was gonna go, so agreed, don't give up on your dreams. I would definitely not be here had I listened to many a person who offered not kind things to say. But I'll add something slightly different is be curious, not judgmental. We have a lot to learn about the world. I'm still learning and pushing myself and challenging myself and leaning into those uncomfortable situations where, you know, many parts of the world were built for me, but not every part of the world was built for me. And so, you know, being invited into those spaces by people who have learned to trust that I am curious and not judgmental, and that I'm there as an ally and a supporter. And I think doing that work is an ongoing life's journey and something that I would hope everyone can do.
100% about whatever everyone said. I'm all on board with that. Every morning when I wake up, I have a little poster on my wall that says 3 things: stay humble, be kind, and work hard. Stay humble, be kind, and work hard. And that is the advice that I will give to everyone. Stay humble. You don't know everything. It's a journey. You're learning every day. It's awesome. Take it all in. You're wrong sometimes. That's fine. You learn, you grow. Being kind, it's hard, but you know, just try to be kind. I'm not even gonna go through my notes. I'm gonna leave it there. And then working hard, like I told everyone, you know, I have some stuff on my wall. I have some certifications, you know, but I put in the work, you know, to learn and to get to where I want to be. And sometimes, you know, those experiences and books aren't everything, but it does help. And in certain spaces, you know, reality, people respect you more if you have certain experience and expertise in certain things. So it'll help you in what you're trying to do. Like for example, a military or something like that. People, oh, she's military, whatever. Like, let me listen to her for a few seconds, whether they know what I'm about to talk about or anything. Just, you know, let's get your foot in the door.
Wow, such great answers from the panel. I'm just so inspired right now. We've had great questions from the audience too. Thank you so much for asking questions, and thanks to our panelists for sharing your experiences and knowledge with our audience, both live in the panel discussion, but also answering the questions in the Q&A feature. This has really been a fabulous event. So our communities and our world are counting on us to raise our voices and roll up our sleeves on issues that are important to us. You, our Kadi students, are the next generation of We Who Wow. And I just totally got goosebumps saying that. A link is being shared with the audience members in the chat box. All audience members are asked to complete the post-attendance survey. This information is collected for assessment and attendance purposes. For all first-year writing seminar students, your completed survey will track your attendance. Be sure to complete the post-attendee survey. A final thank you, huge thank you to the 2023 We Who Wow panelists. You all are so amazing. This was such an inspiring night. I'm so honored to have been able to listen to all the great advice and stories and input that you gave us. Thank you for sharing your stories and advice for our future change makers. And please continue to do the amazing work you're doing. On that note, I'll say good night. And thank you again for participating and for attending 2023's We Who Wow panel.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.